From the St. Louis Public Radio newsroom, this is The Gateway. It's Thursday, January 16th. I'm Abby Larico. Prosecutors in Illinois are required to release a report if they don't bring charges against a police officer for killing someone. But Madison and St. Clair counties haven't been posting their decisions online.
So St. Clair County did say that they're going to review their policy about how they go about releasing information about these decisions in the future. But Madison County said that they maintain the records and anybody can request them just like we did.
Some experts believe the Metro East counties are skirting state law. That conversation is coming up after this news on The Gateway. 11 days after the St. Louis region was first hit with several inches of sleet and snow, lingering ice on residential and side streets remains a problem. St. Louis Public Radio's Lucretia Wembley has more.
Many streets in St. Louis are sheets of ice nearly 2 weeks after a winter storm dumped about 10 inches of snow. The city's streets department says crews are now focusing on salting the roads, especially side streets that are typically neglected. Sarah Lynn Schmidt from the Grand Center Arts District says public transportation has been difficult for people with disabilities.
As people were exiting the bus, they fell and got hurt. The snow has been plowed over to block them, and people certainly can't get through with mobility devices. It's just causing a lot of safety problems for people.
City leaders say residents should see smaller trucks out this week salting side streets. Businesses and residential owners are responsible for clearing and salting sidewalks. I'm Lucretia Wembley, St. Louis Public Radio.
And Bethany Williams, the city's director of streets, says only 50% of the city's trash has been collected due to icy roads and lingering snow blockages.
The routes that we were not able to collect, we spent time on Saturday putting our salt trucks down the alleys so that we can try to break up the snow and so that we can make some of these routes passable, that we are able to collect the trash.
Williams says trash collection will fully resume as conditions improve. Metrolink passengers will need to plan for some weather-related disruptions over the next week. All stops east of Forest Park to Bolivar will be on the red line only. Customers traveling beyond that or heading further west toward Shrewsbury-Lansdowne will need to add time to their trip to transfer between the red and blue lines. Red line delays are also possible, with trains single tracking between the Jackie Joyner Kersey Center and Fairview Heights stations in the Metro East. Metro says the changes from today through Wednesday are a safety precaution because of ice buildup and possible refreeze. The St. Louis Board of Aldermen's Housing, Urban Development, and Zoning Committee met again Wednesday to gather public input on how to spend the Rams settlement money. St. Louis Public Radio's Eric Schmid reports several residents highlighted proposed funding for childcare.
The bill put forward by Ward 7 Alderwoman Alicia Saunier would establish a nearly $60 million endowment fund to support youth opportunities and affordable childcare. That caught Ward 6 resident Christopher Ottolino's attention. He says the legislation that spends the Rams settlement money should prioritize the people who already live in the city.
I'm going to put forward the radical notion that what people want from government is help to make their lives better. I think there are a lot of pieces of this bill that start to offer that.
Other speakers Wednesday night called for support for disinvested neighborhoods and community development corporations. Aldermen hope to pass a bill before the board goes on break for the upcoming election season on February 8th. I'm Eric Schmid, St. Louis Public Radio.
A hearing to determine whether St. Louis's Civil Service Commission will fire the personnel director continued Wednesday, with allegations she used a city car to spy on her husband. Lawyers representing the city questioned why Sonia Jenkins Gray used a city vehicle to travel to Jefferson City for personal matters last July. They allege she traveled there to see if her husband, the Reverend Darrell Gray, was having an affair. Jenkins Gray vehemently denies the allegations.
The reason that I went to Jefferson City had nothing to do with trying to catch my husband cheating. It was specifically to go to my car to get some very private and personal papers that my husband had not even seen.
Her husband denies the allegations as well. Jenkins Gray reimbursed the city for using the vehicle. The hearing continues today. A former St. Louis cop who shot and killed a fellow officer in 2019 is out of prison. The Missouri Department of Corrections confirmed Wednesday that Nathaniel Hendren was paroled last October. He pleaded guilty in February 2020 to involuntary manslaughter and armed criminal action for the death of Caitlin Alex. He was sentenced to 7 years in prison. Under the state's guidelines, Hendren was eligible for parole after serving just over 2 years of that sentence. Hendren was on duty the night of January 24, 2019, when he and Alex went to his apartment and began playing a Russian roulette-style game. She was killed when Hendren pointed a revolver at her chest and pulled the trigger. St. Louis County's newly appointed prosecutor says she wants to balance a tougher approach to prosecution with evaluating each case individually. St. Louis Public Radio's Rachel Littman has more from Melissa Price-Smith.
Price-Smith joined the prosecutor's office when Bob McCullough was in charge. For the last 6 years, she worked for Wesley Bell. Bell introduced drug courts and other diversion programs to the office. Price-Smith says they have an important role to play, and she will even expand their use.
But I also want an office that is tough on crime and that holds violent offenders accountable, and that gives victims a voice and helps victims to find justice.
Price-Smith has already restarted the office's violent crime unit, and she plans to set up a team that focuses on prosecuting homicide cases. I'm Rachel Littman, St. Louis Public Radio.
Former Missouri Secretary of State Robin Carnahan is reflecting on her time as the leader of the General Services Administration. Since 2021, Carnahan has served as administrator of the agency that oversees federal government procurement and real estate. She points to how GSA helped upgrade crossings near the borders with Canada and Mexico during her tenure. Carnahan says one challenge ahead for the federal government is how to effectively deploy artificial intelligence services to make agencies run better.
And so what we're trying to do is lay out a lot of the trade-offs and things that people should think about as they use these tools. But it's really super exciting.
Carnahan is slated to leave her post when President-elect Donald Trump takes office next week. Carnahan and Melissa Price-Smith both appeared on the Politically Speaking Hour on St. Louis on the Air. You can listen to more from those conversations at stlpr.org. An organic farm in Ferguson is now getting most of its power from the sun. St. Louis Public Radio's Jonathan Ahl reports the educational organization is hoping it will continue its mission to bring healthy food to the community.
Earth Dance Organic Farm Schools started using new solar panels 3 weeks ago. They're providing 87% of the power used on the 13 acres that grows vegetables and trains future farmers and gardeners. Molly Rockman is the farm's founder and CEO. She says being more sustainable is a good thing for Ferguson.
I think there's also a lot of wonderful things that are happening here in the community, and we're excited to be a part of that ourselves and just be a demonstration of a way you can do things, really looking for the next generation's benefit.
The $80,000 30-kilowatt solar array was paid for with donations, but the farm will get a quarter of that cost back through a program funded by the federal government's Inflation Reduction Act. I'm Jonathan Ahl, St. Louis Public Radio.
Prosecutors in Illinois are required by law to publicly release a report if they determine they won't bring charges against a police officer for killing someone. But Madison and St. Clair counties are some of the more populous counties in the state not doing so. St. Louis Public Radio's Metro East reporter Will Bauer speaks with Invisible Institute reporter Sam Stecklow, who's been looking into and just published a story about this.
Okay, Sam, let's start with the 2015 Illinois law. It says if the state's attorney or a designated special prosecutor determines there is no basis to prosecute the law enforcement officer involved in the officer-involved death, the investigators shall publicly release a report. How are most big counties in Illinois handling this requirement?
In most major Illinois counties, after prosecutors decide not to bring charges against an officer, the state's attorney's office will post a decision letter to their website. We found this after looking into the practices of the 15 largest state's attorney's offices in the state. When this law was passed after protesters in Ferguson and elsewhere called for more transparency around killings by police and investigations into those killings.
You found that Madison and St. Clair counties in the Metro East are not posting their decisions publicly. In fact, you had to submit a Freedom of Information Act request to get those reports. What did you find?
So the two counties differed pretty significantly in the practices and the reports that they provided. So St. Clair County didn't have a policy, what they said in their response. And at first they claimed that they didn't have any letters either. We had to ask for a specific case that we knew existed from news reports. When they turned that over, we eventually had to go to the Attorney General's office, who stepped in and ordered them to start turning over the reports, which we've started to receive. They've provided 16 letters, which includes some non-fatal cases, which aren't technically covered by the law. Madison County had a policy, which was last revised in 2023, but they also did not have any of their letters released or posted online either. But they did release hundreds of pages of reports on our first request. Their letters were also more extensive generally than St. Clair County's. St. Clair County's were 1 to 2 pages long. And among the cases that Madison County released, in which they had cleared officers, all of these cases, all of these letters were clearing officers for criminal charges, was in the death of Elizabeth Lindhorst, who died at the Madison County Jail, which resulted in a $3 million settlement with her family and training changes at the jail. But the state's attorney's report cleared officers of all wrongdoing.
And upon further reporting, we did hear back from both state's attorney's offices in the Metro East. What did they say?
So St. Clair County did say that they're going to review their policy about how they go about releasing information about these decisions in the future. But Madison County said that they maintain the records and anybody can request them just like we did. And they also pointed to language in the law talking about the investigators shall release a report. And they say that the Illinois State Police are the investigators and therefore they are responsible for publishing their report. And the ISP spokesperson told us that the way they fulfill the law is only to respond to FOIA requests as well. They have a dashboard where they release some information, but no decision letters.
Criminal justice experts say practices like in Madison and St. Clair counties aren't good enough, and those two counties aren't following the letter of the law. Why so?
Yeah, so Lauren Jones of the Chicago law and policy nonprofit Impact for Equity says that the law means that you shouldn't have to submit a FOIA request like we had to. Everybody should be able to view the reports that are required to be published and not just released. It comes down to interpretation of that one paragraph, really one sentence. Without further clarity from the legislature, she said that there will continue to be a gap for clarity, timeliness, and transparency about officer-related deaths for the public.
Sam, thank you for your reporting.
Thanks so much for having me.
That was St. Louis Public Radio's Will Bauer speaking with Invisible Institute reporter Sam Stecklow. Our Jessica Rogan edited that piece. You can read the full story on our website, stlpr.org. The Gateway is a production of St. Louis Public Radio, a listener-supported service of the University of Missouri-St. Louis. Music by Ryan McNeely of Adult Fur. I'm Abby Larico, and from the St. Louis Public Radio newsroom, this has been The Gateway.